It's my birthday and I'm in the mood to share some of my birthday lessons. Let's get into it. By the way, I'm KJ Miller. I'm a founder, lecturer, and content creator. I love all things business, beauty, and pop culture. If you like any of that, be sure to subscribe. Now, let's talk about these birthday lessons. Okay, so before I get into it, let me just say this. Last year, 2023, was by far the hardest year I have ever had. And I've spoken about this a bit on a couple of other videos. I've spoken about it a bit on my podcast. But last year, my company was in the midst of failing. Minted Cosmetics was in the midst of, failing to the ground, failing dead and gone. And so I realized I either had to sell it or close it down. And the process of trying to get it sold, really nearly broke me. I got it across the finish line this March of 2024. But yes, spent a year over really of my life trying to save a dying company. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I went through a real depression. And I don't want to get into it too much, okay? Because that's not what we're here for. But I do need to preface with that because coming into this birthday, I am in just a completely different headspace than I was in for my last birthday. My last birthday was when I was really kind of like in the descent into the pits of hell, to be quite honest. This birthday, I'm feeling so much lighter, so much better. I've grown, I've learned, I've worked, and I have learned a lot of things because of that really dramatic sort of like descent and now more upward trajectory that I'm on. And so I thought I'd share my top 3 lessons learned over the last year. Yes, obviously I've learned so much more than 3 things, but I think these 3 things really encapsulate a lot of the lessons that have gotten me through what was a really difficult period. So with all of that said, I'm going to now hit you with lesson number 1. Let the people you love see you at your worst. This one is so important. And I know birthday lessons, maybe, you feel like they should be couched in a bit more positivity. No. Okay? Let the people you love see you at your worst. What do I mean by that? Last summer, really around this time, kind of around the time of my birthday, when I was, as I said, headed into the pits of hell emotionally, I scheduled a call with each of my really close girlfriends. I have 4 really close girlfriends. And I scheduled calls with each of them for the express purpose of telling them how defeated I was feeling and telling them about what was going on with Minted and just letting it all out. And I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't even really asking for sympathy. I was just asking to be able to bear it all, mention it all, and give really what felt like the worst of me, my worst feelings, my worst sadness, my worst depression, and kind of just lay it at their feet with no expectation. Again, I wasn't looking for them to help me or to counsel me. I needed to be able to get it off my chest and to just say, I'm at this really low point. I'm feeling so defeated. I'm feeling like, what was it all for? I'm feeling like such a failure. I'm feeling like I've spent the last almost decade of my life working on this thing and it's slipping away, and I'm feeling dumb and I'm feeling stupid and I'm feeling worthless. And I kind of just needed to let it all out. And by the way, I don't do this very often. I do think there's such a thing as like trauma dumping too often on the people you love. If every time you talk to them, it's just like blah, 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 blah. I'm sure that can get far too intense, but I'm really not that person. I rarely am calling people up to tell them, I feel like I'm a failure. It doesn't happen that often. So I knew when I felt the impetus to do it, it was because I kind of had to do it. I kind of had to, I don't know, get it off my chest, get it off my desk, in the words of Taylor Swift. And they let me, and they were there for me. And it meant so much to me. I don't know what else to say about it other than it meant so much to me that the people that I love loved me enough to let me sort of lay that at their feet and to just be there, to just say, KJ, we love you. You're so smart. You're so amazing. You've accomplished so much. No matter what happens, none of that changes. It doesn't change what you've accomplished. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change how smart you are and funny you are and kind you are and loyal you are and accomplished you are. And I needed to hear that, but I also needed to be able to say how low I was feeling. And so I'm glad I learned that lesson, because if I get to that place again where I am feeling just like so dark and so down, it is helpful to know I can share that. I can let people in. It's okay. Now, also, you should, get a therapist. I didn't have a therapist at the time. So I'm not saying let's trauma dump on all of our friends all the time. But I'm saying a lesson I learned is that it is a good thing to let the people you love see you at your worst, because it helps you understand who you really have in your life, who's really going to show up for you and be there for you. And that was a really important lesson for me to learn. Okay, lesson number 2 is do the thing that scares you. Now, this is a lesson I feel like I have learned many, many times, and I continue to have to learn, but for sure, it is a lesson I've learned in the last year. Do the thing that scares you. Now, that applied to my life in a couple different ways in the last year, but the example that I'll give is moving back home. So I now live back in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, and my husband and I, really around this time again last year, we stayed with my parents and loved being here in Ohio with them. Our daughter loved being here in Ohio with them and with her aunts and cousin. And we were just like, wow, this feels so right. Should we move here? And I remember thinking, we can't move here now. First of all, my company's blowing up. Second of all, interest rates are sky high. Third of all, Kayla's finally loving her daycare where we lived before in Philly. Like now is not the time. Who can be moving when you're in the midst of your company blowing up and, and interest rates are sky high and everything else? And I was so scared at the idea of just packing up and coming home, because it felt like that's not what we're supposed to be doing. Like, we chose this life here. We're building a life here. This is where we're supposed to be. Let's keep doing it. And so I was very scared at the thought of picking up and moving. But I got to tell you, best decision I ever made. Best decision we ever made. We are so happy being at home, being around family, being around lifelong friends. We knew we were missing it, but it's almost like we weren't able to admit to ourselves how much we were missing it until we moved here. And as scary as it was absolutely the best decision. And sometimes I think decisions that scare us, like that fear, is actually a sign that this is something you need to do. I'm not saying it's always the case that fear is a signal, to jump in. Sometimes fear is a signal to back away, okay? Like, if a sign says shark-infested waters, your fear is not telling you to jump in, okay? So I'm not trying to make a blanket statement here. I am saying, though, I do think sometimes what feels like fear is actually a bit of an inkling, a bit of a premonition that there's something on the other side of this. It's going to take some work. It's going to be hard, but that thing is worth the hard work. Sometimes I think our fear is trying to signal that to us. So another life lesson learned for me, do the thing that scares you. And then my final life lesson that I'd like to share that I've learned now that I'm 38 years old, and yes, I am fine saying my age on the internet, okay? I have worked hard for these 38 years. My final life lesson is you are enough. I am enough. Let me tell you how this lesson kind of manifested itself for me in the last year. For me, it really came down to my content creation. If you look at particularly my TikTok, right now I'm at 209,000 followers over there. In December, so 6 months ago, I was at 30,000 followers. So in the span of 6 months, I've seen so much growth. And by the way, getting to that 30,000 followers took me like 18 months. So 18 months to get to 30,000, 6 months to get another 180,000. What changed in these 6 months? I really believe it was me recognizing and feeling like I am enough. Because to get to that first 30,000, I remember when I first started my TikTok back in early 2022, I was so regimented and I had this content calendar. There's nothing wrong with content calendars, to be clear. I was so regimented and I was planning out every single video and trying to hit my marks. Okay, I want to do beauty on this day and I want to talk about business school on this day and I want to talk about, and I felt like it all had to be planned out and it all had to be polished. And, I didn't see that much growth. I saw a fair amount. 30,000 is nothing to sneeze at, but I didn't see that much growth. And I remember, I think because in December, I was so broke down. Okay. Broke down. I didn't have it in me to do anything other than just post what I was genuinely feeling. And what I genuinely was feeling at the time was Taylor Swift's music. And so I started just talking about that. And the reaction I saw and the love I felt from the Swiftie community kind of propelled me to just keep going. Okay, what else am I feeling? What else is interesting me in this moment? Let me talk about that. And I've done the same thing on my TikTok, the same thing on YouTube. And I've seen so much more growth, so much more engagement, I think because I recognized I am enough. Now, what I'm not saying is that I don't put any planning into my content anymore. I do, but it really emanates from my real life experiences and thoughts, right? Because at the end of the day, in these 38 years, I've lived a lot of life. I've done a lot of things. I've learned a lot of lessons. I've had a lot of trials and triumphs. And because of that, I've become a person whose opinions, I think, and content and knowledge is worth paying attention to. And now I genuinely believe that I am enough. My experiences and opinions and lessons learned are enough to create content that is compelling. Accepting that has, I think, helped me grow as a creator and will continue to help me grow as a creator. Again, it's not that I'm not putting in work. It's not that I'm not putting in time. It's that I am believing I am enough and leading from there, if that makes sense. All right, so those are my lessons learned in my 38 years on my birthday. I hope it's helpful to you. If any of it resonates with you, let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this sort of content, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you next time.